Welcome to the IOTSA Cybersecurity Experts Panel. I'm your host, Brian Sherman, Director of Content for IOTSA. We have an informative, interactive discussion on tap today covering a timely and extremely crucial topic for the channel, securing the emergency remote workforce. So it's a trying time with the rapidly escalating COVID-19 concerns. The CDC, state and local governments are encouraging, or in some cases mandating, especially if you're in, I think, parts of California and looking at New York, they're mandating companies to let those who can work from home and do so, which puts many businesses in a quandary. MSPs are being asked to help end users make that transition. Today we'll discuss some of the challenges associated with remote work, including implementing effective controls to address security and compliance concerns. Joining me in this conversation are some fantastic experts and people that we've chatted with and had the opportunity to work with in the past. Matthew Koenig, VP of Sales at Secure Now. I also have Gil Langston, Head Security Nerd at Solarwinds MSP. And last but not least is Justin Kallhoff, CEO of Infogressive. Good day, panelists.
How are you?
Morning, Brian.
Very good. I think we'd all love to be in a different situation, but I'm glad everybody is securely working from their remote locations, it looks like, today. I want to thank you all for joining us, first of all. And let's start off with the brief introductions. And if you could just share a little about the company and how you are handling the current situation internally. Why don't we start with Matt?
So my name is Matthew Koenig. I'm VP of Sales for Breach Secure Now. And right now, we are a remote company. We don't even have an office and never have. So the nice part for us is it's built into our DNA for all of us to work from home and be able to work as a team and function as such. So for our company, business as usual.
Gotcha. Why don't we go to Justin?
Justin Kallhoff, founder, CEO of Infogressive. We decided, I think it was last Friday, to send everyone home. Much like Matt, our people are very used to working from home when necessary. It's kind of a around-the-clock thing anyway, so nothing really that unique. Some people that aren't used to it, but VPNs are a thing and Slack is a thing, and here we are doing just fine.
Very good. And last but not least is Gil.
So Gil Langston, Head Security Nerd at Solarwinds MSP. Currently, right now, we are in full-on enabling work from home. Most people have been told in most cases to work from home. We do have some who traditionally go into the office every day. So they're in that adjustment period first couple of days, but so far everything's going well. We're staying in communication with all the collaboration tools and making sure that we let those people feel like they're still connected, right? That's the most important part.
The one thing I noticed about our panel is we're all pretty comfortable working remotely too, so we may have the advantage on that. We haven't had to make a transition for the most part, although I think many of you have worked in work environments and occasionally do have that actual physical office space that you go to. Justin, I know you have in the past too. Remote work seems to be the number one objective for businesses and the top topic, as I mentioned, for the channel this week. What are some of the biggest challenges MSPs face trying to move more of their clients' employees to a virtual work environment? And why don't I start with you, Justin?
Well, I think the biggest two things really. Licensing challenges. People weren't ready for their entire workforce to be utilizing VPN. There's lots of tokens, lots of VPN licensing challenges and everybody needs them right now. So there's a lot of that. I think the second one is just, all IT folks, both MSPs and normal IT folks and organizations having to support that many people with at-home IT challenges. It brings in a lot more unicorns, right? Of nothing is the same, nothing is standardized, every computer is different, everybody has different software, different internet, blah, blah, blah. And so what you're used to, some uniformity is kind of gone right now. So it just adds to the complexity and uniqueness.
Are you seeing some of the licensing? Does that take a little time, or are you getting bottlenecked at all with any of the security offerings?
Oh, we haven't had a challenge, but I know others have, right? So it's because everybody's working from home, right? So distribution, manufacturers, you've got some companies are based overseas that are having bigger challenges. And so the whole supply chain, right, can create some unpredictability that we're not used to, especially when people need it. We had one utility company that was like, we need 600 tokens and we need them now because we have 600 people sitting on their hands. And we're like, got it. We'll get them.
We're lucky the cloud probably enables that, makes it a little quicker these days than it used to be. Why don't I shift the same topic over to you, Gil? What are some of the biggest challenges MSPs are facing right now?
Well, for sure, what Justin referenced about licensing and spooling up capacity, right? At the same time, I've been tracking some conversations where a lot of service providers are dealing with issues when they're setting up VPNs, especially when they're not used to doing so, right? A lot of SMBs, they always work from the office. So this is new for a lot of situations. And running into things like IP addressing problems, overlap and crossover between their home and their corp networks. So things that they didn't think that they were going to have to deal with, but also that, a lot of people had laptops. Sure, they take their laptops home. From a managed service perspective, well, not much has changed because you're kind of built to do that, right? You're remotely supporting people wherever they go, but then you have people using their own devices to access cloud resources, do other things. That whole disparate software. The other day, I actually said it's almost like you're now going into a bunch of hostile environments that you're just not aware of as a service provider, and making sure that not only do they have the bandwidth, but in connectivity, but that they do have the right software. But then there's all of the cybersecurity stuff that I'm sure we're going to talk about that it's just an unknown. So making sure that you're getting people up to speed and in a safe work environment, I think, is the biggest challenge people are facing.
Very good. And I'll switch over to Matt, especially on the training side. What are you seeing? Dark web, there's a variety of new things. How is that transition?
Well, it's interesting because of the fact that, remember, it's emotional for people right now. People are scared. People are all of a sudden being thrown into new work environments out of their homes. They may not have spaces to work from, and it's things they're not used to. And what we're finding is, when you've got your MSP and all the technical issues that Gil and Justin talked about, and you're moving them over, people, once they get set up, are getting comfortable. They're starting to get comfortable in their workplaces, and in doing such, they don't remember all the things that they weren't supposed to do in the office because they feel safe at home. Furthermore, while they're kind of in that mode, they're constantly looking at information. And there are a lot of imposters out there sending all kinds of information about, the spread of the disease or statistics and stuff like that. And people, being in the mindset they want to click on that. They want more information. And unfortunately, in doing so, they're causing a lot of problems that they may not be causing because of their awareness in the office.
That's a good point. I think we're running into some issues, especially when it comes to even bandwidth. And I live in a fairly small town, but there's many rural areas of this town too. It's pretty spread out where they don't have great internet access. And we had to make adjustments in our church, which is right downtown here, just because a couple of employees that just want to continue to work, but they don't have internet service at their home. We gave them keys so that they can come in different entrances and work separately. Luckily, it's a big enough building to do that. But you think about the logistics involved, and MSPs even being asked to do different things to help accommodate it, or set up cellular type service. It's those are challenges we don't necessarily always think about, but in this case, it's it can affect productivity, and especially for those that want to continue to work and need to in many cases too.
Absolutely. One of my my CTO the other day, who's got high-speed FiOS, so gigabit service, went down. Whole thing just went down for an hour. We're assuming, because of the normal demand that's increased by 100-fold at this point in time. So he's on his cell phone. We use Teams, sending notes away. Hey, I'm not up. Hey, I can't do anything. So absolutely.
Yeah. These guys that are doing internet service are now an extremely vital service to the communities. It's amazing where we've come over the last 20 years. But one other thing I wanted to throw out, because I've been looking through the channel forums online and Facebook and through the LinkedIn, and I've seen a lot of discussions around techs doing on-site work, whether they should, whether they shouldn't, what precautions. I know it's not cybersecurity related, but what are your thoughts on that topic? And Justin, I think you had some specific discussion points. I'll throw that to you.
Yeah, stop it. This thing lives on surfaces for up to days, and so you don't think a keyboard and a mouse is a surface, then you don't understand physics or biology. So I would tell every MSP on the planet, unless it's a critical problem, just use your own keyboard and use all the remote tools in the world. There's no reason. Unless there's a physical problem with the computer, and then even if there is, that physical device better be in a hospital. That's a life-saving equipment that you're working on, because if it ain't millions of dollars or lives, leave it alone. They can wait.
Yeah. Are there other precautions, and I'll throw this out to the group, other precautions you can think of? I've seen some that are bringing in their own keyboards in cases to do that, especially when it comes to your point, hospitals, police, emergency work, internet companies, the vital services we need to keep going. That's one suggestion. Anybody else have any other thoughts for the MSPs that are struggling with this?
I would recommend, one of the things that I think drives sometimes a technician to go on site is, hey, I can't talk somebody through this, right? They're supporting all these home environments. There are challenges. I think it's now time to just pause and learn a little bit of patience and practice your let me walk you through that skill a little bit when it comes to helping people, solve minor technical issues. And then to Justin's point, at some point, you have to make that decision. Is this worth risking, going out in the world, touching all these surfaces? I think finding that balance, but really practicing a lot of patience when it comes to people who are non-technical, working with them to at least get their environment to where somebody can work.
Yeah, I saw. Go ahead.
Bring your own device. That means bring your own mouse and keyboard to the
Yep.
to the game.
And wipe them down constantly.
Yeah, I saw a couple of MSPs suggesting that they were doing some quick and dirty videos, basically just to provide for those that are in the office now that may be going out of the office. Obviously, it doesn't help if they're sending videos to people that don't have internet connection or don't have a setup at home. But they're trying to do some very quick training of when you go home, are you looking for these things? Let us know if you have this, and this checklists, so that they're doing some of their own, I want to say remediation, but at least doing some assessment to help the MSP so when they make the transition, it will look better.
Let's make sure we're clear on bringing your own keyboard and mouse doesn't keep you safe. It hangs in the air too, right? So that's only a small mitigating control. It doesn't make you safe because you brought your own keyboard.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Prioritizing at this point in time. If it doesn't affect revenue, either a loss or a gain, it ain't worth it. It's just not worth it. If they're not going out of business because of it, or as Justin said, a life isn't being lost because of it, it'll wait. What we do is not rocket science, and unless somebody's losing revenue, or they can significantly grow revenue, or it has to do with life saving, it's just not worth it at this point.
Definitely. Now, let's shift from the human and logistics element to cybersecurity, because that's obviously, one of the areas you guys really thrive. That's why we brought you in today. Plus, we love talking to you guys. You're really awesome to hang with. But the criminal element is we've seen it right from day one, thriving off people's anxiety over coronavirus. That's a no-brainer. They have stepped in faster than I've seen them respond to many other things. What steps should MSPs be taking to warn their end users about related social engineering and phishing right now? Why don't, Gil, you want to start off?
Sure, I'm glad to. I actually did a blog post about this last week when it started blowing up, because I knew this was exactly going to be the thing. Someone infected near you. Click here to learn more. Those kind of emails, but also more creative ones that appear to come from WHO or even your own organization, asking you to test your login capabilities and then throw an Office 365 login and get your creds, right? All of those things. Their whole job is to get your interest to click on something and act, right? And this is to Matthew's point, prime example. People want information about this. So, there are really three things that I think people should be paying attention to. Number one is making sure that they're working in a secure environment, right? The controls that go around the people, right? Number two is making sure that people are educated to the risks. Like Matthew also said, people behave differently at home. You go into work you're kind of like, this is their property, their equipment. I'm just going to do work related stuff. You're at home, you're sharing a computer, doing those things. Make sure they understand that. And 3 is start a regular communication process during this time. And what that means is, here's what we're seeing out there. Here are some legitimate or trusted resources that you can go to that have been vetted by us. And then continually communicate on the same schedule from an email address that people know and trust, so that they know to click on that when they want information, not all the other random stuff that are coming in. I think making sure that they're heightened, elevated attention to what's going on and what's coming in are the most critical ones.
Makes sense. Matt, what about training in this time too? Because you got people obviously distracted and transitions going on. What are you seeing on the training field as far as, especially with social engineering and phishing?
Sure. I mean, right now the FBI says things are going up by double digits, and that 99% of all, campaigns or breaches or things like that, of course, come in via email. So, a lot of the MSPs, what we're working with right now is helping them set up training programs that they may not have had before, or figuring out how to set up phishing campaigns, so people can learn on the spot and get them back in a position where they're thinking. And they're thinking about the fact that I shouldn't click on this, or I should do more research on this, or I should just go to the website rather than dealing with an email. Various tools and stuff like that, as well as running dark web credentials right now. Because as silly as that sounds and self-promoting, guess what? Right now, if somebody clicks on something and their credentials end up on the dark web, not only are they possibly infecting their computer, they're possibly giving them access to a bunch of corporate resources that they didn't realize. So we're talking to a lot of our MSPs. We're implementing training. We're implementing some other programs to get them involved or to help them make sure that it's not one of the things that they eliminate as they try to conserve money and cash. Because right now, when it comes to this kind of stuff, my opinion is it's not the time to eliminate training. It's the time to actually increase training and increase that awareness.
I saw one managed service provider that posted in one of the forums yesterday that their first step when they get somebody set up in a new environment is to make sure they go through a course just to set the tone from the beginning about how serious security is. Are you seeing similar things?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing similar things. We had an MSP call us the other day and say, you know what, I'm looking at all these free tools because these companies out there are wonderful and they're offering pieces of their platforms at no charge right now to help companies in this time of need. But this gentleman said, and I quote, I don't care about all of those tools right now. If one of my end users clicks on something they shouldn't, then my whole business is thrown into a tizzy and I'm not able to function like usual and take care of my clients. So he wanted to jump on board as quickly as possible and get them trained up. We're hearing that more and more from people. The fact that they're putting this all of a sudden first as opposed to additional tools, because the reality at the end of the day is you can have as many tools as you want and biometrics and locks and everything else, but if your kid opens the door and offers them a cup of coffee, it doesn't matter what you have in that place.
Yeah, definitely. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have to even think beyond the phishing attacks, right? Why do you phish? We suddenly, all of a sudden in the world, have millions and millions and millions of people using their home computers to access all the cloud things, all the VPN corporate networks. And, research says somewhere between 30 and 50% of home computers are already infected, right? And so we don't have any of the same controls on any of those home devices whatsoever to protect against phishing, let alone when they're successful, let's just assume there's malware on 30 or 50% of home computers. And so most malware these days is going to have a keylogger component, and it's going to suddenly log all of those usernames and passwords that all of these millions of people are entering all day long on their home computers. So my prediction is hackers are going to have a field day. All they have to do is attack home computers with no technology whatsoever, watch username and passwords fly by all day, get into the corporate environments that are probably all of a sudden turned down to let everyone in, not as many controls, where letting people in that don't normally get into VPNs. We are giving access and removing ACLs that we used to have on to access SaaS applications are now open to the whole internet because everyone's at home on their internet connection. All of that from a security person like me is a nightmare because no one's planned for it and no one took strategic steps. And the worst part is we've got these millions of home computers that have free AV and they're already infected. Going to create chaos. It's
I have
phishing.
this, Justin, I have this vision of like people in their O365 consoles right now, just whacking away all the access that they had, right? Just so people can access their emails and all of those holes. It's concerning.
Well, it goes back to
going to be haphazard.
Yeah, it goes back to the fact that, as people do things, they're taking up valuable MSP resources and time because of the fact that when they do something that they shouldn't, to Justin's point, all of a sudden the MSP is having to jump on that rather than pay attention to some other stuff that needs their attention, or rolling out other, security pieces and making sure that's taken care of. One of the other things that it's not funny, but it's interesting because people automatically think, and this goes back to comfort, that hackers in no way, shape, or form would take advantage of this time. We're all in panic mode, and therefore, they're people also, so they must be in panic mode. They don't have time to do this. And we all know that's not true. As a matter of fact, they ramp up their operations 4 times, bigger during these kind of times.
Yeah, we've seen it for tornadoes and hurricanes, which are more of a regional event. This is a worldwide event. I mean, I'm looking at my email over the last 3 days. I can't think of a company I haven't done business with in the last 2 years that has not sent me what looks like an official email on their COVID-19 response.
Right.
And click here for more resources.
Right.
Every one of them has links in it. How many of those, I'm wondering as I look at those, are legitimate?
Yeah, they're buttons and bit.ly links, the things we tell people never to click on, right? I mean,
yeah. But there's an interest in it. Yeah, they want to know, what am I going to do with my bank account? Oh, I'm going to click on this. Many of them look legit, but we know what's happening with cybercrime. They're getting smarter and more savvy, and they're probably ahead of the banks in many cases, sending these emails out.
Yeah, I think Matt alluded to it. Of people want information right now, and they're really hungry. So that's a bad combination from a phishing standpoint, right? And I fell for it. My friend got me a good one. Luckily, it wasn't malicious. It was like the headline was, Trump is diagnosed with coronavirus, and I'm reading so many links right now. That's believable to me, and it's from a friend. So I'm like, ooh, click. It was a good reminder for me of slow down, even if it's information I really want to read. Like the attackers used the Corona global map and got a bunch of people. People want to look at maps and pretty graphs, and click.
I'm imagining sports stars getting coronavirus. Click on that one.
Or your neighbors.
Movie stars, click on, or hey, this happened in your neighborhood.
Right.
Boy, you could have a field day if you were creating this stuff.
Well, it's funny because all of us are putting out infographics. All of us are putting out these remote work policies and, what to do and how to do it and, how to work from home. And it's funny because of the fact that a lot of companies are sending out things saying, as you said, for more resources or an infographic to teach what you should and shouldn't do, click here. Yeah. And, people are automatically doing it, or you're sending out as a company what you think is a valuable email to teach them stuff. But at the same time, there's a link somewhere in there and they're clicking on it, even though it looks official. So that goes back to, one of the things we're doing is we're sending out a note with no links, and we're saying, go to this address if you want more information.
Well, to Justin's point, Justin's point about, seeing something, this is interesting. So I've gotten into a habit now. If I see some headline like that feels a little clickbaity or wants me to go, I just go to Google and I search it, and then I look for a reputable news site. But we're in the industry, right? We know about all of this stuff, but that's really concerning how easy it is for somebody to just fall for something. And
absolutely.
So do you think for maybe a best practice for MSPs right now is if they are trying to alert their end users about things, is to post it on their website and say, please go to our website or our support portal or other places for this info, rather than click here on this email link?
Yep. I would agree.
I was going to say fast is not the way to do it right now.
Yeah.
Safe is the way to do it right now. I mean, even explaining that in the document that says, hey, the reason we didn't give you a fast link is because we want to make sure you're protected. Please type this address in.
Yeah.
Going from that standpoint.
Excellent advice. And even on, doing YouTube videos and stuff like that is posting there. At least they can see the individual and, recognize people that are in there too is just use an extra step of precaution. So be creative as an MSP, but start with those security practices, like especially Matt, the training things that you're learning. Yeah, put those to good use when you're sending stuff out to your clients, especially those that are hanging on every word that says or every email that says COVID-19 coming in. So let's switch a little bit back, because I don't think we have a conversation anymore where we don't talk about the risk to MSPs, because it's legit these days. MSP's own internal cybersecurity controls right now. What additional risks are they facing currently? Gil, why don't we start with you?
I mean, honestly, they're always facing risks. I think all of us on this panel have been involved in discussions or with someone who's already been breached, and or their customers end up the ones that suffer from that. That's obviously still a risk. And to your point, employees are employees. Even employees of an MSP could make a mistake, click on something, have their network compromised. But what kind of does concern me now is that, let's say, for example, you have this workforce of however many people that have gone home, and you need to support some of the non-corporate equipment, the personal devices. One of the things people are going to be tempted to do to make it easier, well, I'm going to install a monitoring agent, and I'm going to give myself remote access so I can support these people. So what you've actually done is expand the risk. Now it's not just the few environments you were supporting in the corp networks. It's all of these other networks too, which are more opportunities for somebody to infiltrate an MSP and then get access to more devices and more chances to ransom, for example. So I would say it's elevated risk, but it's the same risks they've always faced, with a little bit of a twist on it now because of the elevated risk their own employees might be generating by clicking on bad things.
Yeah, Justin, I could see where those that may not have worked as closely with an MSSP might reach out now at this point too, to have you guys doing a few more services, especially monitoring. Are you seeing more interest in that right now?
Yeah, I think a very few, single-digit percentage sort of MSPs and some of our direct customers are realizing that they're expanding their footprint, as Gil said. Right, you had this perfectly controlled environment where you had this very specific stack of tools and toys to stop the bad guys. Well, now we just expanded defense dramatically, and we don't know that what state we're accepting those computers in. So even if you deploy the stack, I think the mistake of many MSPs is those tools are going to miraculously remove an attacker that's had control of that host with admin for how many years or months. Right. You're not. It doesn't do that. It monitors for an attack now. It doesn't remove what's already there. So I guess my advice is, expand defense, expand the stack to include, if you're letting people use their own computers, you've got to get your stack out there. Because as an MSP, we're blind. And so if user A credentials are stolen and they're doing an attack, it's hard to tell the difference if they're on their home computer because the stack's not there. The visibility isn't there for us, and we depend on visibility to do our job. And don't do things haphazard. We see a lot of people, like I said, disabling things to get access quickly and not thinking through strategically before they do that. MFA gets turned off because people don't know how to use it. All of that sort of, oh crap, sort of haphazard changes is dangerous. And so we need MFA, we need ACLs, we need our stack to have visibility. And it's going to be hard to get that done quickly. I mean, imagine trying to step a user through using their printer at home. Now try to step them through installing your stack.
Right. Well, and Justin, too, there's the challenge that there's this question of ownership, right? When you're supporting the corp environment, well, you co-own that environment with your client, right? Now you're going into people's homes and saying, well, I'm going to start scanning your network. They're like, wait a minute, you're going to what? right? So, that's a big concern as well, is how much can you actually exert that additional stack deployment into all these environments?
That was one of my first questions to the lawyers out there in the world. I said, so when a breach happens in this situation and it started on a home PC, if that user, now you're going to tell your home user, hey, I'm going to confiscate your PC, or I'm going to take an image and I'm going to, search through everything on your computer that you've ever done because there's a breach that started there.
I got 12-year-old kids that use this computer. I don't know what's on here, right?
The thing is, to Justin and Gil's point is, now's not the time to speed up. Now's the time to be methodical. I know it's scary. I know you've got all kinds of customers riding you and saying, I need this immediately. And that's great. But waiting an extra couple hours for you to be able to think through something isn't going to kill them, because, as we started the topic, it's time for MSPs, if they haven't, to do their own security risk assessment and look at their own environments quickly before they start rolling out things to other users and home computers and stuff like that. And again, if they have the people, they have the talent, if they just do it, it's not going to take that long to come up with it and be methodical about what they're doing.
Well, I think they should set some expectations too and say, hey, listen, there are a lot of businesses right now that are shuttered, that are starting to close their doors because they have to, or the type of business they do. You're operating, nothing is a 1-hour dire emergency, because I'm pretty sure all of your customers would probably expect that there will be some delays as you situate too. So, to Matthew's point, being the voice of reason and the partner and saying, we are going to get this done. It may take a little bit longer. Let's be methodical about it. The world is not going to end in the next hour if we don't get this one thing done.
Certainly. Do you think there's I guess maybe I'm overthinking this, but you're seeing government relaxing regulations around trucking and emergency orders going into place. Do you think there's a fear that some of these businesses are going to get lax on their compliance and think, well, they're not going to hold me to this if I'm going through all of these things? Am I just like throwing out bizarre ideas, or is this something that we really should be thinking about?
Nah, absolutely not. OCR, Department of Health and Human Services, the other day about HIPAA, sent out an announcement saying that all HIPAA policies and procedures on both the security and privacy side will not be relaxed in any way, shape, or form during this time. And please do not use this as an excuse, because we will still fine you for not following these process and procedures. And it was very official. I went to their website, of course, didn't click on their links, but it spells it out very completely that they will not accept you not following compliance at this point in time.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
That's great.
I doubt that Visa and MasterCard are going to suddenly not be worried about your credit cards getting stolen during this time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't worry about those companies doing it. I worry about the individuals, especially in some of the smaller businesses, going, they've got bigger things to worry about right now. And that generally does happen. People do get lax.
Until you're a supply chain, issue there, and then suddenly everybody's looking towards you 6 months from now when you were involved in that. Yeah, I don't think saying, well, things were crazy at that time is going to get you out of any litigation or fines, right?
Nope.
It shouldn't. Yeah.
I don't have to pay taxes now, so that's good.
Awesome. If the bank ATM would just start spitting out money, it would be a perfect opportunity right now. But yeah, we don't have that. Here's a question I had too is do you find that most SMBs have a remote work policy already in place? And I know there's occasions for it, but is this one of those emergency responsibilities MSP should be taking on and crafting something to get out there right now? Anyone have thoughts on that? Gil, you look like you're itching.
They will. I can tell you that. There are a lot of SMBs that, they didn't have a work from home policy, or it was a very, okay, you could work from home tomorrow, make sure you answer emails and, do the things that you can do connected via cloud resource or whatever. But I do hope that this is certainly a wake-up call, not only for the SMBs, but for the MSPs to say, as they take on a new client, do you have a work from home policy? What does it look like? Let's create a checklist. I know that they're not working from home today, but what if this happens again? I think that should be one of the services in kind of onboarding requirements, or, let's shift the policy for my existing clients to make sure they have one in the future so they're not scrambling to do this again over the course of a couple of weeks, right?
Matt, do you think on training side that would be urgent to make sure that they emphasize that point is going through the training, and if not scaling up their end user training right now?
Absolutely. I mean, we're crafting policies, remote work policies. We're crafting actual phishing simulations on remote work policies that they can send out saying, here's how you should do this, click this, to make sure that they're looking at that besides just the coronavirus stuff. Because again, it's amazing right now because of a lack of policy, how lost some people are, and it's not their fault. But, putting that out there. My wife works for a particular government agency, and even they're going crazy sending stuff out because, to your point, let alone at the SMD level, this particular state government agency, and I'm going to assume that's across most of them, are, they don't have policy. All they have is log in via your VPN to make sure you're safe. But there's no policy whatsoever except for, you can telecommute today.
And then they start remembering other things that they need to. And that, like you said, it's a constant stream of emails coming from, and this, and this, and this. So, that becomes a little bit of fatigue over time. It's better to have that plan together. Here are the things we need to cover, and then put that together in one response plan.
Yep.
Yeah, right. I think people may want to evaluate the paperwork that they put in place to allow companies to be able to do some investigation on those home users, or they better buy some more laptops. I'm sure Dell and HP love this time right now, and I'm sure a zillion laptops are being sold. And I'm sure Citrix and VMware love their virtual desktop licensing stream right now.
I hate to bring this up at this point, but I don't know what's going on legally in this area, but now is definitely the time to have some cyber liability insurance in place if you don't. Again, I don't know what policies they're willing to enforce at this point in time, new policies, but if you can get your hands on one and you don't, now is definitely the time to make sure you have that in place.
And that it covers remote work and these types of situations, right? I mean, you don't want to get caught by surprise and say, oh, no, this didn't cover people using equipment at home, right?
Absolutely true.
Do you think, how hard is it at this point, do you think, for an MSP being asked by a business to, enable somebody remotely, but they look at it and go, this is not a secure environment, we should not do it, and still have to do it anyway? I mean, what are the liabilities there? Any thoughts?
All day long, customers are going to dictate, you open this up, go ahead, install that PC anywhere or whatever thing right now. I don't care if it's a security risk.
Right. What does that do to the compliance and the liability and all of those things? As an MSP, it's hard to push back, but in some cases, if the liability comes back on you, you're going to have to look at what's the right thing to do.
Make the customer put it in writing that they asked for, and you advise them not to do it.
Right. Or come up with multiple alternatives so that they can find an acceptable one, right? I mean, asking somebody to do something crazy like, port forward an RDP connection or something where you literally you might as well just leave all the doors open, right? It's exactly. Come up with better alternatives and understand, depends on your licensing model or your model as an MSP. If you're doing all in, well, maybe it makes sense to just offer some of these alternatives at a little bit of a loss for me short term so that my guys can keep working and not have to go into triage mode every 2 hours when they get another, oops, I clicked on something. So, making sure that you do have alternatives in place and that they're affordable and that there are several of them available, right? Because generally, to Justin's point, the first one they ask for is probably not the best one.
How many RDP connections were open from the internet this week to computers?
Man. I'd love to go in and find that out, right? I mean, to do a compare.
The other thing, to Gil's point, is that, a lot of companies right now, and I think the MSPs in certain ways, if they can afford it, should follow suit, which is, put something in place that is secure and that will work, and do it as a loss leader or throw it in the stack for right now at no charge. Because guess what? At the end of this, they may want to keep that in place. And if so, that's a great time to say, no problem, it's going to cost X. Microsoft brilliantly is giving away Teams for 6 months. And I got news for you. People are going, oh, that's so nice of them. Well, yeah, on one hand, it's really nice of them. But as soon as a company sets up Teams and gets hooked on it, how many do you think are getting rid of that afterwards? I mean, it's also a brilliant scam. Idea.
It's the cocaine model of sales. Here, just try it. It'll be great.
Exactly.
First one free.
Well, that's a good point, though. What lessons should MSPs, you think? Let's first of all, hope that this is over with quickly and people can get back to work in a matter of, just a couple of weeks or, worst case, a few weeks. When the dust settles, people go back, what lessons should MSPs take from this experience? Justin, thoughts?
Be ready for more, it's kind of BYOD forced upon us all of a sudden. We've been talking about it for how long? And here we are. Surprise. All kinds of computers everywhere needing to access all kinds of clouds and things. So, have those flexible licensing models and be able to talk customers through all the things, accessing all the things, and security problems related to all the things.
And I also wonder on the business continuity side is how many of the companies without an MSP support are backing up all of the files that need to be and making sure that everything's being saved in these little silos is connecting back to the cloud. It'll be interesting to see what's learned afterwards is what they're missing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And unfortunately or fortunately, I think this is an ideal time after this is all over to look at policies and procedures, as Justin said, that they never looked at before, and kind of force those in place with a lot of their customer base and say, look, based on the experience we just had, these need to be in place. This is added to the stack automatically, and it needs to be there, and here's why, et cetera, et cetera. I think it actually brings a sales opportunity, though you don't want to talk about it like that, for the MSPs afterwards to make sure, they perform security risk analysis, they set up new policies and procedures, and they make sure things are in place that were never, in place before.
And I would think too, so we talked about earlier about all-in model versus a piecemeal cafeteria style service model. I would hope that some managed service providers who are struggling in making that jump into an all-in model can actually understand or investigate the value of doing that, because, as we all know, generally with an all-in model, it does give you the ability to be a little more agile and nimble and maintain your profit margins so that in situations like this, you could add this additional components into that stack, service the customer, make sure that they're protected and handled, write that into your all-in as one of the things that's included, of course, with still guardrails on what's out of scope, but really investigate that model and understand that the all-in model actually does give you a lot more flexibility, especially in times like this when a small business is not going to be willing to add other dollars per month services just to stay protected.
I think the one concern when it comes to that point is when we get through this too, is you've already got companies that may have been financially struggling that are going to be even further struggling. So the conversation is going to be, can I delay paying my bill? And while you're asking to improve security services too, those are going to be some tough conversations going on for the channel moving forward. So it's not necessarily all going to be opportunity. It's going to be balancing what are the priorities and can we take from here and add to here kind of conversations.
That's going to be a long tail for everybody, right, Brian?
Yeah.
We're still in the beginnings. Yeah, some businesses are affected. We don't know how long. Hopefully short, to your point earlier, but there will be a long tail as that goes all the way up to service providers and vendors and employees and all the bills they have to pay. I think it's going to take some time before all that kind of balances out, but the SMB will probably have some concerns. I doubt that they've been maintaining 6 months of emergency cash all the time, right? That's just not how most SMBs work.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, it's been a phenomenal conversation with you guys. But before we sign off today, any final thoughts? I want to do a go round here. Matt, why don't I start with you? Final thoughts to leave as far as remote working and suggestions for the channel.
Sure. Think, be methodical, make sure that you don't panic, make sure your house is in order, and remember that, everybody's human. So the way people react are the same way you would react or anybody else to this. And at the end of the day, you need to train, you need to make sure they're aware, and you need to make sure that people at home aren't doing silly things that they normally wouldn't do in the office, or otherwise it's going to cause a lot of problems that you don't want to be dealing with.
Yeah, definitely. Justin?
Don't touch other people's keyboards and mice, and expand the fence.
Good suggestions. And Gil?
Make sure that as I mentioned, that you're aware of the hostile environments that you're currently supporting. Focus on getting them up to some bare minimum of security that you can understand, by deploying some of your stack in there, what's acceptable. Make sure the users are in fact educated, and express some patience. Everybody is in fear and concern mode, and everything will be a challenge. So I think it's time to really practice some of the patience model and be a partner with these businesses, and take your time.
Yeah, fantastic suggestions. I think it's a great time for having a little empathy too, is try to not everybody reacts the same way to situations. So everybody's got a big challenge ahead of them. But on behalf of IOTA, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Matt Koenig of Secure Now, Gil Langston from Solarwinds MSP, and Justin Kallhoff of Infogressive. And in many cases, I think you guys are readily accessible online. I know Gill, and I think most of you have blogs too, or your company has a blog. I definitely encourage going to check out the blogs and get the latest information, because I know you guys will be busy doing that over the next few weeks.
Just don't click on any links.
Good advice. Always good advice. So the association will also be delivering a variety of new content in the coming weeks, covering the latest issues and concerns for our channel audience. So stay tuned for more details. And by all means, we ask everyone to be safe. Thank you all.
Be safe.
Take care. Bye-bye.